welcome everybody to the 10th and I must say, unfortunately, final webinar for the FAIR project as part of the Competence Network. The first thing I want to share is that we are recording this meeting, as you can see, because we would like to publish it, and also for those that are not able to join today, that they can see what we have been talking about. If you prefer not to be part of that recording, please let us know, and then we will make sure you're not part of it, of course, when it is published. With that being said, my name is... Oh, sorry? Oh, that was my echo. Sorry, once better. So yeah, my name is Jeroen Peters. I'm a senior design researcher at RISE, Research Institutes of Sweden, and part of the FAIR project, moderating today. First, a very, very brief introduction about the FAIR project, even though I think most of us that are here know this already. It will also be good for those that see it later. The FAIR project is about preparing the Kvarken region for an early implementation of electric aviation. The project increases the knowledge base about electric aviation, investigates the possibilities, and surveys both the needs and the required technical investments. So it's quite a broad project exploring what we can and should do collectively to prepare this region for electric aviation. And it's very much a first step to be able to do that rapidly in the future. We have 3 work packages within the project. Work package 1, regional effects of electric aviation, which includes Umeå University, University of Vaasa, and Nord University. Work package 2, guidelines for implementation, which is done by Biofuel Region and Mid-Scandia. And then we have the work package 3, the cross-border innovation process run by RISE, of which the Competence Network, in which the frame in which we have done these 10 webinars, is also part. The project is managed, of course, by T-Rains and owned by the Kvarken Council. And just to refresh your memory, the Kvarken region is about the narrowest part of the Gulf of Bothnia, and we are very happy that the project has some time ago been extended to include the Nordland County region in Norway. So we have a very nice geographical spread covering both the mountains to the west as one big natural barrier and the sea to the east. And we are also very happy to actually be supported by not only the Interreg Botnia Atlantica funding, but also actually a very strong network of private and public financiers that are part of the network of FAIR and that are contributing to the broad base from which we work. So we're very grateful for that. The program for today, we have one speaker, Gisle. Oh, and I see that I have completely the wrong slide in the program. Sorry about that, Gisle. Not sure what happened there. But we have Gisle Solvoll, who is a professor of transport economics at Nord University Business School in Bodo. He has previously worked as a researcher at Norland Research and later as a research leader at the same place. Gisle has extensive experience in transport economics and logistics and has published a number of research reports as well as popular science and scientific articles, and is widely used as an expert commentator in the media locally and nationally. And now I have to think of the title of your talk. I think it was Electrification of Aviation in Norway. Is that correct, Gisle?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry again for not having updated this slide. I thought I'd done that yesterday. But yeah, you will give us a talk, and we will reserve time at the end for discussion and questions before I will close the session for today. And with that being said, the floor is yours, Gisle.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. And I shall share my screen here so you are able to see my presentation.
Please do. Yeah, great. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. First, I would say that as you can see to the right here, it will be launched a report in, I think, in July. where we document the results from our research here. It's to language editing now. And the main aims in this report is to investigate the experiences the transport authorities in Norway can make use of from the recent process of introducing zero-emission vessels in the ferry operations in Norway, when they in the future shall purchase flight routes operated by electric aircraft, the so-called public service obligation or PSO-routes. And the pictures here, the ferry you see here, that is the first battery electric, the world's first battery electric ferries put in operation in 2015 on the west coast of Norway. The name is Ampere on the ferry. I will later return to the process for implementing this ferry. And I find a picture of an electric plane. It's a plane that's being produced by Heart Aerospace. Maybe you have seen it before, an electric plane with 19 seats, and hopefully it could be put in operation in 2026. In my presentation today, I will talk a bit about the airports and the airport structure in Norway. I will talk about the organization of these airports and show you some economic figures. I will talk about the PSO route system in Norway and the tendering of these routes, and I will talk about the tendering of the ferry services and the process towards the zero-emission ferry operations inland in Norway. And in the end, I will see some implications for aviation and some lessons to be learned from the process that have been in the ferry operations in Norway. Maybe you will hear some Norwegian words, but I shall try to take all this in English. Well, the background you should be familiar with that. The focus on climate change and lower greenhouse gas emissions. And through the Paris Agreement, Norway has committed itself to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 40% in 2030. And the transport sector and the aviation must contribute, of course, in this reduction. And also there has been an agreement between the airline companies, Avinor, the airport owner, and the employers and organizations and workers organizations in Norway that the aviation shall be fossil-free by 2050. And I think this is quite important. In Norway, as you know, as I shall show you in a moment, we have a lot of airports. We have many short routes, and that is operated by small planes. And we have also a strong government involvement through the PSO routes. And this make, I think, Norway well suited as a first market and an innovation arena for the introduction of electric aircrafts. Okay, looking at this map, we can say we are not in short of airports in Norway. And looking at the figures, there are 48 airports that have scheduled route traffic at the moment, and Avinor, state-owned company Avinor, owns 44 of these airports. Maybe I can use this one, yeah. Compared to Sweden has 39 airports with the scheduled or chartered traffic, and the state-owned company Swedavia owns only 10 of these. So the big difference between Norway and Sweden is that we have more airports, and especially that Avinor are more engaged in these airports than Swedavia in Sweden. Oslo Airport Gardermoen has about half of the terminal passenger, and this is figures before the pandemic, of course. Domestic routes are mainly operated by SAS, Norwegian, Flyr and Widerøe. Flyr is a quite new company that was launched route 1 year ago. And Widerøe is the dominant on the regional routes, where several of these routes are so-called PSO-routes operated on the contract with the Ministry of Transport. This figure is showing the runway length of all the airports in Norway. And a lot of these at the bottom here are shorter than 1,000 meters, and this can only handle small aircrafts, of course. And the largest one is the one that's operating today, that we do have the Dash 8 with 39 seats. We have also some airports with runway length of 1,200 meters, and these airports can handle some larger planes, up to 50 seats approximately. And when the runway are 2,000 meters or longer, it can handle jets without no weight restrictions. The Boeing 737 is the most normal plane here. And looking down here at Mo i Rana, that is familiar for some of you. There is building a new airport that is planned to open in 2025 or 26, and this airport will have a runway length of there are two options but over 2,000 meters. So Mo i Rana, Røsvoll will close down, and Mo i Rana will move to the upper side of this figure. So a bit about the airport owner Avinor and this Avinor model. Looking at the numbers from the Avinor group, they had in 2019 operating revenues of 10.4 billion Norwegian crowns and costs of 7.4. And this should generate a profit of about 3 billion NOK this year. The four largest airports, Oslo, Stavanger, Bergen and Trondheim, are profitable, and they generate profit about yearly about 4 billion NOK. And the regional airports, the 41 left here, has a net operating deficit of about 1.1 billion Norwegian crowns. But some of these, including Bodø and Tromsø and Ålesund, I think are about approximately in balance, but they are in one group together with the regional ones. So there is a significant cross-subsidization of airports in the Avinor group, but the infrastructure as a whole, as you can see, is self-financed. The fact that the profitable airports finance the unprofitable ones is referred to as the Avinor model, and it's also the Swedavia model, but the Swedavia only owns 10 airports, as I said. And looking at some figures from Sweden, Swedavia and their 10 airports has had 6.2 billion in revenue in 2019, cost of 5.5 and profit of 0.7 billion Swedish crowns this year. I shall not go through all these figures, but these are the figures for Avinor airports in 2019. You see the group as a whole Gardermoen, the 4 large airports and the regional airports, and some to the right here. We have income, we have costs, and we have profit. And the income from the airlines is at the top here. Of course, it's income from the charges they have to pay to use the airports. Oslo, 2.1 billion, and you see here, and 4.3 in sum. And if you go a bit down here, we see that the profit at as I showed you recently is about 3 billion, or was about 3 billion NOK in 19, and also a profit over 1 billion at the 3 other large airports, Bergen, Trondheim, and Stavanger, and the deficit at the regional ones at 1.1 and 2.9 if we sum to the right here. Yeah. Something other interesting, I think, is these 2 numbers here. We see that the share of aeronautical income is 42% of the total, and the non-aeronautical income is 58%. And moving to Gardermoen, it's 65% of the income are from activities that are not directly aviation related. To say that's income from tax-free sale, parking, rental income from shops, and so on. So the non-aeronautical income are very important in Norway for operating the system, and all this money are put into one account, as to say. So when we have large income from non-aeronautical income, the charges do not have to be so high, so they have to be without this income. But this is about the same in Sweden, but in Sweden the numbers are about opposite. It's 58% aeronautical and 42% not aeronautical, and that's for the Swedavia airports. Yeah, the charges are like this, and in 22 the takeoff charge was 69 crowns per ton if the plane was not over 75 ton, and the passenger charge of 50 crowns to pass the security, 64 crowns, and the terminal navigation charge depending on the weight of the plane, and route charge that are invoiced and collected by Eurocontrol at the down here. And these charges generate aeronautical income. And I think this is quite important also. The economic incentives to use of zero emission planes through reduced charges can challenge the Avinor model and set the pressure on Avinor to further increase their non-aeronautical revenues if the charges on fossil fuels are not increased. So if in the future Avinor shall use the charge system to give incentives to operate electric planes through maybe zero passenger charge or security or takeoff charge, the income will decrease and of course make pressure of increased income from other sources. So the PSO-routes, today they are about like this. I'm sitting here in Bodø now, and we have a lot of routes out from Bodø here. The Ministry of Transport set these routes out to tendering, and it's a 4-year contract in southern Norway and 5-year contracts in northern Norway for the winning company. 10 years ago, the length was only 3 years. And there are approximately 50 route options in these routes here, and 36 airports. So most of the airports in Norway had at least one PSO routes in 2019. And if you're looking at the numbers, about 1.2 million passenger uses these routes, and that's approximately 4.5% of domestic passengers, 2019. But these routes are short haul and up and down, so it's a significantly larger share of the transport movements. This could be interesting in from 1st of April this year to 1st of April next year, so 1 year. The purchase are almost 900 million Norwegian crowns, and 80% of the purchase is related to routes in northern Norway and the rest in southern Norway. So northern Norway, it's Trondheim and further north. So if you remember the cross-subsidization numbers, we can say that the governmental funding grants or subsidies are about 2 billion Norwegian crowns per year in Norway, about 900 million in purchasing of flight routes, and 1.1 billion in cross-subsidization of the infrastructure. So Norway uses approximately 2 billion Norwegian crowns to have this system of routes here. The claims in the competitive tendering, I can't go in detail here, but there are features on aircraft use, minimum number of seats. Do they have to have pressure cabin or not? Most of them do. Total number of seats offered per route per year is a request. Minimum number of daily departure, depending on weekdays or weekends. No traffic obligations on certain days. And the contract has been more flexible than it was some years ago. The operator that's Avinor now has more, could adopt their routes more to the demand that they could before. Minimum number of stopover of the routes, must it be a direct connection, or could the plane have transit on airport between A and B? Timetable, when should the first route arrive at, for example, the first route from Lofoten to Bodø arrive at Bodø, and when should the last departure go from Bodø to Lofoten? Maximum ticket prices. Today it's like this. Avinor can charge at the most 12.99 Norwegian crowns for one way, also from Bodø to Mo i Rana, for example. But most of the tickets are cheaper than this, because this is the roof, the maximum ticket price, and they have a lot of tickets cheaper than this. There are also regulatory requirements, minimum 98.5%, but that's calculated only for events for which the company is responsible. The weather is not included here. Okay, so moving to the ferry services, and the ferries are very important public transport service in Norway, and that's not the same in Sweden. We have a lot of islands and fjords to cross. The first tender was launched in '94. Then there was about 16 ferry companies competing on these contracts. Today there are only 4 left. And the process of electrifying ferry operations began in 2010, I would say, at the National Ferry Conference in 2010. And in the national budget for 2011, we can read this, that it's planned that the connection Lavik-Oppedal in 2011 will be announced as a development contract. And an electrically powered ferry or a ferry with biofuel may be relevant in the competition for the operation contract. I will shortly return to that crossing, but the ferry on the first PowerPoint was the result of the development contract. Yeah, the operation of the ferry connection Lavik-Oppedal was put out to tender in 2011 with startup set to 2015, 10-year contract, and there were one development ferry and 2 conventional ferries powered by diesel. The company was organized in accordance with the procurement procedure competitive dialogue. And both the 4 large companies participated in the competition, and Norled won this competition with the ferry Ampere, a battery electric ferry. This is more for technical reasons, but the evaluation criteria for the development ferry was like this. It was evaluated on energy efficiency, environmental efficiency, and innovation. And the weight was put on the different categories was like this. And to select a winner, both energy, environmental efficiency, and innovation, also these here counted 40%, and the total price for the 3 ferries, the one development ferry and the 2 other, counted 60%. So you can say the environmental things here counted 40% when the winner was selected. Yeah. The competitive dialogue. Competitive dialogue is a procurement form where the buyer, in this case the Norwegian Public Road Administration, goes into a dialogue with the actual providers instead of using a traditional closed tender competition. Yeah. And this procurement form can be used when the conditions in the regulation on public procurements are met. And it can be used when the client's need cannot be met unless adjustments are made to available solutions. Procurement includes innovative solutions, high grade of complexity and financial risk, and the technical specification cannot be described with sufficient precision by reference to a standard or the European technical assessment or something like that. And the conclusion of this, I think, is that competitive dialogue was well suited for the purchase of an electric ferry or electric ferry services, and should also be well suited for PSO-routes operated by electric aircrafts. So where shall we begin? If we shall think of one actual route that could be a development route for an electric aviation route. Well, I have thought about this route from Bodø to Røst. And the flight distance is about 100 kilometers over open sea. Flight time today with the Dash 8 is 20 to 25 minutes. It's not a lot of passengers traveling on this route. Runway length, 800 meter. Alternative transport is not very good. If the ferry direct from Bodø to Røst take 3.5 hours. And this route was operated in the period 2003 to 2008 by Cato Air with a Dornier 228 with 19 seats and no pressure cabin. Today, the route is operated by Avinor with a -8. Yeah, so maybe this could function as a first route to launch a development contract for an environmental friendly flight route. Yeah, lessons to be learned for electrifying aviation from the ferry operations. Yeah, it's important at an early stage to investigate the power supply and the power requirements for all airports in Norway. This work has been started by Avinor already, and there are some airports where there are problems with there is not enough energy to do the charging from the grid, so there must be other power solutions. It's also important, of course, to involve the airport owner Avinor, the Civil Aviation Authority, Luftfartstilsynet, and the safety authorities. In Norway, the Direktoratet for Samfunnssikkerhet og Beredskap, because if you shall introduce electric aircraft, you shall charge a battery electric plane. Maybe there are fuel in the area of that for the commercial planes, and there are some risk involved in these operations. Yeah, and initiate a dialogue with suppliers and subcontractors to the aviation industry. And also not wait too long to prepare the new tendering documents. And I have learned for many years that it's important to put the text in boxes and draw some arrows between them, and then we have this figure here. Start at the top and go down to the bottom. Yes, these steps and is more, of course, detail explained in the report that is soon launched. So in the end, I will draw some conclusions. And most of the regional airports in Norway have short runways, as we have seen, and that should be well suited for the operations of the first generation of small electric planes. That should be no problems to operate on these short runways. Yeah, future tenders on the PSO-routes can be one of several tools to speed up the introduction of new aircraft, as we have seen in the ferry industry in Norway. The procurement forum competitive dialogue can, as done in the ferry tenders, be appropriate. I think it's the same in electrifying aviation than in electrifying ferry operations. It's an appropriate form of purchasing. Yeah, and there is a yearly aviation conference in Bodø that Luftfartstilsynet arrange, and maybe the conference in 2024 could function as a startup conference for the work of electrifying regional aviation in Norway. Yes, thank you. That was my presentation today.
Great, many thanks, Gisle. It was super interesting. I really appreciate how you sketched the complexity involved in this task, also with the Avinor model and how the system has been created, and that there are many things that need to change, but also make it quite pragmatic and practical in terms of what is already being done or what we can learn from other instances on how to change it. So thank you for that presentation. We have some time for questions now, so I invite the audience to take this opportunity. And we see that Isaac already is eager to ask questions. Please go ahead, Isaac.
Thank you, Gisle, for your presentation. I was wondering if you have had the chance to talk with the Ministry of Transport. Are they interested in trying to do the same with the PSO-routes as the road authorities did with the ferry services?
Yes, I have talked with the ministry, and they are very interested in the development in the aviation and the electrification of aviation. And I'm also engaged in some research now together with the two other institutions in Norway about the requirements set for the next tenders on the PSO-routes. And that's a report that will be launched in October or November this year, I think. It's together with Oslo Economics and the Norconsult in Norway. So the ministry has a process now for looking at how the tenders on the PSO tender should be in the future. But of course, you can't demand an electric plane when there is no electric plane to put into operations. I think that's very important, and so it's a quite long way to go, maybe.
Just a follow-up comment is maybe when they started the procedure for the ferry services, there was no battery electric ferries to purchase. If I understood it correctly, that was developed because of the criteria that they set in the tendering or in the dialogue.
Yes, it was no electric ferries before this, and the Statens vegvesen was it was traditional tenderings with the traditional ferries, and maybe it was a bit strange for someone that the industry didn't start this process by themselves, because the price of electric energy has been low in Norway for many years, and the prices of diesel started to rise, but it was a competition on price, and then it was only conventional ferries that was developed and set into operations in the tenderings. But that changed, as I said, with the development ferry. And also the participants did get some economic compensation to be in this competition, to reduce the risk of developing a new ferry solutions. I think they get it's not a lot of money, but they get 3 million NOK each consortium to be in the dialogue and to deliver a tender to the authorities.
Katarina, I see you've raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Let's see if I can get my camera to work as well. Yes, I did. Great. Hi, Gisle. Very nice presentation. Thank you very much. I'm working at the Swedish Transport Administration. I'm supporting the people working with the PSO traffic, aviation and ferry. I'm not supporting the ferry people because I am an aviation expert, but still. I was interested to know, when you have had contacts with the ministry, have they looked into the details, or is it just that they are interested in looking into the report and digging further into the details, or which level of interest do the ministry have at this at presently, given your research?
No, they are not very concerned now about details, but they are very interested in the process and the time, the time scale here. When can we demand an battery electric plane or some other environmental friendly planes, because there aren't any such planes certificated now, and But they have started the process, and as I also said, Avinor has started to look at infrastructure at their airports to see what they have to do if they should be able to charge electric planes at the terminal. So the process has started.
Yeah, we have contact with the airports in Sweden, of course, that are have a project in electrifying the regional airports as well, and they have a lot of contacts with Avinor, I know. And I also understand the fact that it's different to demand an electric ferry based on the regulation that is the basis for that PSO. And we don't have the same legal basis for the aviation sector. So it's just like you say, we need to have a plane at the market in order to be able to use that. But your work is really interesting. Do you know when the report will come, and how will it be accessible? I mean, can I find it? Sorry.
The report we write at Norway University. Yeah, it's a no to language editing because it's in English, and it must be, and we will receive that in maybe a week, and July I would say we are finished. It's just the language. So yeah, 1 month.
Really interesting. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Katarina. Randy, please go ahead. I see you've raised your hand for a while.
Yes, hello. And
Hello.
Thank you also for the invitation, and also Gisle for this very, very interesting lecture you gave. My name is Randy Lervik. I work with green transition in the Lofoten Islands, and you mentioned Rust. So I just wanted to comment on this power supply. My background is I work with the power supply company, Lofotkraft, also responsible for the grid. So, and to say that we are already looking into it, also from, like you said, Avinor has made some contact, but also by ourselves to look into this, because it's really, yes, we from the power supply point of view, it's really necessary that we are and start this process early as well, so we can be able to supply what is actually needed. And we're looking with, it's really interesting to see what is going to be the actual needs, and how the technology develops, and what is going to be the actual needs for electricity, but also other forms of energy. So yes, just as a comment. So thank you again. I'm really looking forward to your report.
Thank you, Randy, for those comments. Do you have further questions from the audience? I have one in the meantime, while you might think of something more to ask Gisle. Gisle, can you shed me? I'm quite interested in the competitive dialogue model that you mentioned, and I wonder if you could shed a bit more light on that procedure. I think you just mentioned that it means that there is some sort of funds available to prepare a tender in a different way than is maybe typically done, and since there's clearly some tensions between doing innovative and new things and some procurement procedures that exist. I'm quite curious to hear more about this competitive dialogue, if you can shed some light on that.
Yes, it's not a common way to purchase transport services. So I think the Norwegian Public Road Administrations had to do some, as you say, it hasn't been done before, so they was a bit unsure of how to proceed. But they, as I said, the ferry conference in 2010 was the startup conference for electrifying the ferries, and then at this conference it was the shipping companies, shipyards, energy producers, battery producers, providing of charging infrastructure, power grid owners was at that conference, and they started to discuss what has to be done to get electric ferries to operate ferry crossings in Norway. And they also, as I said, got some economic compensation. But it was consortium that was, I think it was 4 consortiums, because it was four shipping companies, and then they had other companies together, also in a consortium to develop these the ferry, because it's a lot of different professions that have to be included to get a new ferry to be certified and ready for operation. But it's maybe more, how to say, easier for a ferry than a plane. It's I'm not an engineer, but I think it's more complicated and more innovation in an electric plane than an electric ferry, because the ferry is it's a boat, but a different energy supply and a different engine, and but most of the ferry, electric ferry, is like a conventional ferry. But it's not a problem, I think. I like to say that when people say that it's very difficult to get things done, I used to say that in 1969 we get people to the moon and back, and in 2022, 23 it must be possible to have an electric plane flying from Bodø to Røst and back in a safe way. Maybe not 23, but some years ahead. So yeah.
Yes, no, I think that's a nice way to put it. Do we have further questions from the audience? Lars, please go ahead.
Thank you, Gisle. Hello, and a very good presentation again. The question that came up to my mind now, when we discuss the cost and benefits of the airports, that is, so to say, we treat the airports as a sort of monopoly. But I mean, when we compare to investments in rail and roads and so, then we add calculations to get the socioeconomic value. So we consider consumer surplus, producer surplus, if they exist, and so. And I've seen that sort of socioeconomic studies for individual airports in Norway, but I'm not sure. But I open for you to correct me. Has there been any such studies of, so to say, the airport system together? The monopoly of that together with the PSOs, where you and that's more directed perhaps towards the airlines and the oligopoly of the airlines. So we consider the whole system as such, and the socioeconomic cost and the socioeconomic benefits, to see how such a calculation would come out. Do you know about that?
I don't know if I understood you right, but a socio-economic analysis of the airport system as a whole, I don't think it has been done. It's very difficult to how also the total benefits and of having this system. But there has been a lot of analysis of changing in the airport structure. I mentioned the airport at Mo i Rana. There have been done many analyses of the costs and benefits of that airport. So it's more analysis in what are the social economic cost and benefits of changing the present system, and also regarding the routes, of course. Should there be a PSO? Is there a need for a PSO route between A and B? how many frequencies should it be, or could the market fix this in its own? So yeah, the analysis is more on the projects, not on the whole system, because I think it's very strange to think about the costs and benefits, especially the benefits of the aviation system in Norway. All these airports, all these routes. What has this? Yeah, how would the society has been, or what would be the results if you close down routes or airports and maybe base the transport on sea or road or rail and not aviation? I don't think this was the answer to your question, but the question was not very precise, I will say.
If I continue then, I think that would be an interesting study. There has been studies in Sweden of all the investment plans, yes, within railway, for instance, yes. And it would be interesting to try to estimate the consumer surplus and producer surplus, so to say, beyond how the passengers value the transport beyond the price they are paying for the transport, because that is the consumer surplus, so to say. So then you can have a system that is generating more cost and benefits, but from a socioeconomic point of view, you continue to have the system, because comparing with other alternatives, building roads, building railways or shipping or whatever, then you anyhow think this is a benefit to society, so to say, in a traditional way, as we estimate, for instance, and a smaller piece of new railway or so. So I think, yeah,
I think most also political parties in Norway that they also the system of using, as I said, 2 billion Norwegian crowns per year in cross-subsidization of infrastructure and purchasing of routes. That's a good use of money, because you get a lot of transport, and it's a good regional instrument in Norway to have these routes and to buy these routes and to have the system of airports. Yes.
Yeah, but then you can also think, could we have more, or should we reduce it a little? I mean, that is the interesting question, though. But we leave the floor for Einar. Yeah.
Yes, hello and good morning, everybody. My name is Einar Sorensen. I'm sitting in Toulouse, in southern France, where we just now have finished with the first heat wave. So now it's living temperature again here. I have been living in Toulouse for 20 years, working with aviation, closely with Airbus and all the other aviation environment we have here in Toulouse, which is a world center when it comes to aircraft development, etc. But I'm also engaged in a project in northern Norway, which is called Zero Emission Regional Aviation Norway. And we have choose to attack this problem, because what our opinion must be about the climatic change and the political inputs we see daily, there is no question that we have to modify our way of flying. There is no question at all that this will have consequences when it comes to every kind of aviation sector, let it be the airports, the aircrafts, etc. But we need also to accept there is an elephant in the room. And that elephant is, what kind of fuel are we talking about? For the time being, during this meeting, a very interesting meeting indeed, and very good lecture from Mr. Solvoll in Bodø. He was focused on electric aircrafts. And we know for sure that electric aircraft is very interesting indeed. But there is a long, long way ahead. And for the aviation industry, the aircraft producers, the airlines, and the airports. For the time being, it is the SAF, synthetic aviation fuel, sustainable aviation fuel, which is at the foremost point of interest, because there is not possible with today's technology in battery, and of course involving all the technical problems in installing a battery with sufficient power in an aircraft. It's as Mr. Solvoll said, this is quite different from a ferry. And I know also that the ferries in Norway with electric power via batteries, they are having terrible problems, both in charging and also causing a lot of delays in the traffic pattern they should cover. So battery technology is not at the level where we can see as certain that the battery is the solution. For the time being, and that is also the prime interest from the aircraft producers. And in our project, we are working with international aircraft producers, both in Germany and France. So we are quite updated now what the opinion is for the future solution. And everybody agree that we need to start, and we should start at the regional aviation level. And that means we have to find what kind of aircrafts is possible within a 10-year time, for instance. And normally it's 15 years and 20 years to develop a new aircraft. So this is quite complicated matters. But there is the sustainable aviation fuel, or maybe a hybrid solution where you can combine a battery with another solutions like hydrogen, which is the other part of it. And as Mr. Solvoll know, the ferry development in his area is now concentrating on hydrogen-powered ferry boats from Bodø crossing the West Shore to Lofoten. So in short, yes, battery is very interesting, but I think, and this is not my thinking, but the industry itself, all the inputs we have got from the major engine producers, the major airlines, as well as the aircraft producers, are now indicating that it's the sustainable aviation fuel combined in a hybrid solution, which maybe is the solution for the regional air traffic, both in Norway as well as elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Einar, for that input. It is certainly a relevant discussion to have, as we also saw on last Friday at Transport Forum in Sweden, where we were also discussing the complexity of these different technologies and fuels, and how to manage the short-term transition and how difficult this is. I wish I had time to let people respond to it, but I think we have to start closing today's session, unfortunately, because we are almost at 10 o'clock. So maybe the final conference that we will have 20 and 21st of September in Skellefteå for the FAIR project could be a good place to carry on some of these discussions, if not in other venues. So that's one thing I wanted to mention before we close today, the 20 and 21st of September in Skellefteå. We have the final conference of the FAIR project, and you're, of course, all very warmly invited to join us there. For other matters concerning the project, we are still running this project, of course. It is ending after the summer, so feel free to get in touch with us. You can see here the names of different people that we suggest you contact for different aspects of the project. And of course, you can follow us also on LinkedIn or visit the website flyfairkvarken.com, where we keep the progress and reports of the project, as well as the final report in due time. That being said, thank you all for your participation and engagement. Thank you, Gisle, for your talk, and very interesting talk. And hope to see you at the final conference all. Have a great Monday.